let's talk about chapter 13. It is a short chapter. And so basically, Calpurnia comes in the house and she settles in and she's ordering everyone around to put her bag in her room. And she likes to be treated like, a rich person because that's how she's always been treated. And so she says the reason she's here is because their father, Atticus, and she decided that it was time that she came to stay with them for a while. And so apparently the kids need some feminine influence is what she says. And so then Scout tries to stand up for Cal and say, well, Cal's a girl. She can be enough of influence and she's doing fine. And she goes, oh no. And then Scout goes, well, what about Uncle Jimmy, which is her husband? She goes, won't you miss him? And she goes, oh, don't you worry. He'll be fine keeping the landing just the way it is and looking after their cousin. And so Scout could think of nothing else to say to her because she is not happy. Her and Aunt Alexandra do not really get along because she's really not very nice to her. She talks down to everyone and she thinks she's better than everyone, and she treats Scout unparticularly negatively. And so anyway, she goes on to talk to her and she's listening and she's being quiet, and Scout has the idea that Aunt Alexandra is there on her own accord and not so much from Atticus's request, because it sounds like she has made the decision to come stay there. And so Scout goes on to talk about how Maycomb welcomed her, how she kind of just fit in like a glove, and she settled in, and it seemed as if she had always lived there, which is some of that foreshadowing at the end of last chapter, when the last chapter ends with Aunt Alexandra was sitting on their porch, as if she had sat there every day of her life. And so that is the foreshadowing that we see here. And she likes to play hostess, so she invites everyone over from the town, and she likes to talk about their family history and talk about how great the Finches are, and she's a big gossip, and she's talking about everyone, saying that so-and-so has a drinking streak and a gambling streak. And anyway, she goes on to say how that however long a family has stayed in a spot, apparently the finer the family was, because the Finches had been in the area for a long time and on the same piece of land for many generations. And so she seems to think that means you're from a fine family. But Scout says that she got the notion or the impression that fine people were ones that did the best they could with what they had and tried to be nice people. But Aunt Alexandra told her it was good folks were people who lived in the same place for a very long time. And so Jim pipes in. He goes, oh, that means that the Ewells must be really good folks then. And she says nothing. She just ignores that. But it's pretty funny that Jim says that. I don't know if he's being sarcastic or if he is being serious. But anyway, we find out that Maycomb is an ancient town. It's old. It has old ideas. It's not very progressive. And so that's definitely a lot like Aunt Alexandra. And so eventually Scout is invited to come hang out with the ladies of Maycomb and all their cousins and things like that. Come speak to these ladies, Aunt Alexandra says to Scout. And she's like, okay. And she puts her in a dress, which she hates. And she says, speak to your cousin Lily. And so Scout's like, who? I don't know my cousin. And anyway, they go on to talk, and she goes, they're talking about Joshua, and Scout says, is this the cousin Joshua who was locked up for a long time? And Aunt Alexandra is not impressed. She's upset and doesn't know how she knows that information. And so she says, we'll see about this. And before bedtime, Atticus kind of comes in and he says to Jim and Scout, do you guys know where you come from? Do you know that you're a Finch? Your aunt has asked me to explain the family history to you so that you can reiterate it, and that you should be talking about our family more and all this. And so he tries to do that, and then the kids are just not having it, right? They're kind of grumbling, and Atticus says to stop their noise. And then they're like, Atticus, why are you acting like this? And he says, don't worry about anything. And he says again, for like the 10th time in this book, that it's not time to worry yet. And so Jim complains that he's not going to be able to remember everything that Finches are supposed to do. And so then he changes his mind. He just does a 180 and he says, I don't want you to remember it. Just forget about it. And he makes a joke. He goes, I get more like cousin Joshua every day, huh? Do you think I'll end up costing the family $500 just like he did? He's chuckling. And so, Scout says that finally she realizes what he's trying to do. He was only a man, and he was trying to do women's work. And so that's another insight that she has at the end of the chapter.